Dr. Amanda Brooks was halfway through her morning coffee when the universe changed forever. She sat in the quiet observation deck of the Kepler research station, watching the distant stars through the massive viewing window. The station orbited, a small planet in the outer rim, far from Earth and the busy trade routes. It was peaceful here, which was exactly why Amanda loved her job studying alien life forms. The emergency alarm shattered the silence like a hammer through glass. Red lights flashed across every surface as the station's computer began speaking in its calm, mechanical voice. Priority 1 transmission received. All senior staff report to the communications center immediately. Amanda set down her coffee and Anna. Her boots echoed through the empty corridors as she made her way to the center of the station. The Kepler research station housed only 43 people, mostly scientists and a small security team. They rarely dealt with emergencies more serious than a broken air recycler or a minor equipment failure. Captain Ryan Mitchell was already in the communications center when Amanda arrived. He stood with his arms crossed, staring at the main display screen with a deep frown. Ryan was a good captain, fair but tough. He had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 15 years before taking command of the research station. "What do we have?" Amanda asked, slightly out of breath. "Something we've never seen before," Ryan replied. He nodded to Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes, who was working at the communications console. Lisa was the station's tactical officer, though they rarely needed her military skills out here. "The signal came in about 5 minutes ago," Lisa explained, her fingers dancing across the controls. "It's not from any human ship or station. The transmission pattern matches what we know about Zephyrian technology." Amanda felt her heart skip. The Zephyrians were a peaceful alien species that humanity had met only 3 years ago. They were beautiful creatures made of living crystal, who communicated through musical sounds. Their homeworld was hundreds of light years away, in a system controlled by the Galactic Council. "Play it," Ryan ordered. The speakers crackled to life, and a haunting melody filled the room. But this wasn't the gentle, peaceful music the Zephyrians usually made. This was something else entirely. The sounds were broken, desperate, filled with pain and fear. Even without understanding the language, Amanda could hear the terror in every note. "Computer, translate," Lisa commanded. The station's artificial intelligence began converting the alien sounds into human speech. What they heard made Amanda's blood run cold. "Please, anyone who can hear this message, we need help. Our world is dying. The Vaktar Empire has come to our system with their war ships. They are destroying our cities and taking our people as slaves. We have tried to fight, but we are not warriors. We are singers and builders and dreamers. We do not know how to make weapons or fight wars." The message continued, and Amanda had to grip the edge of the console to keep herself steady. The voice described the destruction of the beautiful crystal cities she had seen in the first contact reports. It spoke of children being shattered, of ancient libraries being burned, of a peaceful civilization facing complete destruction. "We know that. Humans come from what you call a death world. We know that your people are strong and fierce. Please, if there is any mercy in your hearts, help us. We are the last ones left. Our transmitters will not work much longer. If no one comes, the Zephyrian people will be no more." The message ended with a sound that was definitely not music. It was the sound of crystal breaking, of a voice crying, out in agony before being cut short. The communications center fell silent except for the quiet hum of the station systems. Amanda looked around at her colleagues and saw her own shock reflected in their faces. Commander Jake Turner, Ryan's second in command, stood near the door with his mouth open. The other staff members who had gathered looked pale and shaken. "How far away are they?" Ryan asked quietly. Lisa checked her star charts. 2 weeks at maximum burn, maybe 13 days if we push the engines past safe limits. "What about the Galactic Council?" Jake suggested. "They're supposed to handle this kind of thing." Amanda shook her head. "The Council moves slowly. They'll debate for weeks before making any decision. By then, there won't be any Zephyrians left to save." "We're a research station," Jake pointed out. "We have 43 people and no weapons. What are we supposed to do against an entire military fleet?" Ryan walked to the viewing window and stared out at the stars. Amanda watched him thinking, knowing that whatever he decided would change all their lives. The captain was a good man, but he was also practical. He wouldn't risk his crew on an impossible mission, but then Ryan spoke, and his words surprised everyone. Lisa, send an emergency transmission to Earth Command. Tell them we have a confirmed alien species requesting immediate military assistance. Give them the Zephyrian coordinates and all the data we have on the Vaktar Empire. Sir, Earth Command is 3 weeks away, Lisa replied. Even if they send ships immediately, they won't reach the Zephyrian system in time. I know, Ryan said. He turned back to face his crew. That's why we're going to have to do something about it ourselves. Amanda felt her heart rate increase. Captain, Jake is right. We're not a military ship. We have mining equipment and research tools, not weapons. The Zephyrians didn't call for weapons, Ryan replied. They called for help. And they specifically asked humans because they know we come from a dangerous world. They believe we can find a way to fight when others can't. He paused and looked each of them in the eye. I've read the reports on the Vaktar Empire. They're bullies who pick on peaceful species that can't fight back. They use fear and overwhelming force to conquer entire worlds. But they've never faced humans before. They don't know what we're capable of when we're protecting innocent people. Commander Turner stepped forward. Sir, I have to advise against this. It could be considered an act of war. Jake, I understand your concerns, Ryan said. But I keep thinking about that message. Those people are being murdered right now while we stand here talking. If we do nothing, we'll have to live with that for the rest of our lives. Amanda found herself speaking before she realized it. I'm with the captain. The Zephyrians are beautiful, peaceful beings. They don't deserve what's happening to them. One by one, the other crew members voiced their agreement. Even Jake, despite his concerns, nodded his support. All right then, Ryan said. Lisa, change course for the Zephyrian system. Maximum burn. And send out a call on all human frequencies. If there are any Earth ships in this sector, we're going to need all the help we can get. As the Kepler research station began its journey toward what might be their doom, Amanda looked out at the stars and wondered if they were brave or simply insane. But one thing was certain. The Zephyrians had called for help and the humans were coming. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood in his quarters, staring at the communication display on his desk. 3 hours had passed since they changed course toward the Zephyrian system, and the responses to his emergency call were starting to come in. Some were better than he had hoped. Others were worse than he had feared. The first response came from Admiral Kate Morrison at Earth's Orbital Command. Her face filled the screen, and Ryan could see the concern in her eyes even across the vast distance of space. Captain Mitchell, I've reviewed your report on the Zephyrian situation. While I admire your courage, I must remind you that the Kepler research station is not equipped for military action. However, given the circumstances, I'm authorizing emergency support. Ryan felt a surge of relief. Admiral Morrison was known for making tough decisions quickly, and her support meant everything. The UES Vengeance is 3 days out from your position, the Admiral continued. Captain Danny Rodriguez has orders to rendezvous with you and take command of the rescue operation. I'm also sending word to every human ship in the sector. This may be our first real test as a species in galactic politics. The message ended, but more kept coming. The cargo hauler New Boston responded within an hour. Captain Pete Williams was an old freight runner who had been moving supplies between human colonies for over 20 years. His message was short and to the point. Ryan, I heard your call. I've got a ship full of mining equipment heading for the Proxima colonies, but that can wait. Those crystal folks don't deserve what's happening to them. I'll be there in 2 days. Amanda Brooks smiled when she heard that message. Pete Williams was known throughout the shipping lanes as a man who would help anyone in trouble. His ship wasn't much to look at, but he was exactly the kind of person they needed. The next response surprised everyone. The mining ship Iron Will had been working in an asteroid field 2 systems away when they picked up the emergency transmission. Captain Mary Foster was tough as the metal her ship pulled from space rocks, and her message showed it. Mitchell, this is Foster on the Iron Will. My crew and I have been watching the news about these Vaktar bastards for months. Time someone taught them a lesson. We've got industrial cutting tools that can slice through ship armor like butter. Count us in." But not all the responses were supportive. The Altarian Trade Federation sent a formal complaint about human aggression. The Centauri hegemony warned that interfering with Vactar operations could lead to serious consequences for humanity. Even some human politicians questioned the wisdom of making enemies of such a powerful empire. Commander Jake Turner read these messages to Ryan with obvious worry. "Sir, the political pressure is building. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee is calling for an immediate halt to this operation." Ryan looked out the window of his quarters at the stars rushing past. "Jake, by the time the politicians finish arguing, there won't be any Zephyrians left to save. We keep going." While Ryan dealt with the political problems, Dr. Amanda Brooks worked day and night in her laboratory. She had access to all the data from humanity's first contact with the Zephyrians, and she was learning things that could be crucial for the rescue mission. The Zephyrians were living crystals who communicated through sound frequencies. Their entire civilization was built around harmony and music. They had never developed weapons because they had never needed them. Their world was peaceful, and they had always solved problems through discussion and compromise. But Amanda discovered something interesting in the old reports. The Zephyrians could produce sound waves at very specific frequencies. During the first contact, human equipment had sometimes malfunctioned when the aliens were trying to communicate. The sounds they made could interfere with electronic systems. Amanda called Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes to her lab. Lisa arrived to find Amanda surrounded by computer screens and audio equipment. "Lisa, I think I found something important," Amanda said excitedly. "Look at these frequency analyses from the first contact reports." Lisa studied the data on the screens. She was good with technology, and she quickly understood what Amanda was showing her. "The Zephyrian communication frequencies can disrupt our electronics," Lisa said, "but that means they might be able to disrupt Vactar systems too." "Exactly," Amanda replied. "If any Zephyrians are still alive when we get there, they might be able to help us fight. Their songs could be weapons if we can teach them how to use them properly." The two women worked together for hours, developing ideas for how Zephyrian sound weapons could be coordinated with human tactics. It was a new kind of warfare, combining human strategic thinking with alien abilities. Meanwhile, Captain Danny Rodriguez aboard the UES Vengeance was studying everything known about the Vactar Empire. The Vengeance was humanity's newest heavy cruiser, equipped with the latest weapons and shields. But even Rodriguez knew that his single ship wouldn't be enough against an entire Vactar fleet. The Vactar Empire controlled dozens of star systems through fear and overwhelming force. Their ships were large and heavily armed. They typically attacked in groups of 20 or 30 vessels, bombing planets from orbit until all resistance was crushed. Then they landed troops to round up survivors for their slave markets. Rodriguez worked with his officers to develop battle plans, but the numbers looked impossible. Intelligence reports suggested the Vactar had at least 40 ships in the Zephyrian system. The human force would have maybe 6 or 7 ships total, counting the research station and the cargo vessels. But Rodriguez remembered something his old instructor at the Naval Academy used to say. Human beings didn't become the dominant species on Earth by having the biggest teeth or the strongest claws. We became dominant by being smarter than everything that wanted to eat us. The captain called a meeting with his senior staff. "We can't match them ship for ship," he told them, "but we don't have to. We just need to be clever enough to save the Zephyrians and get out alive." His tactical officer, Commander Ben Harris, pulled up star charts of the Zephyrian system. "Sir, if we can coordinate our attack properly, we might be able to cause enough chaos to evacuate the survivors." "That's thinking like a human," Rodriguez replied with a grim smile. "The Vactar are used to fighting species that either surrender immediately or fight head-on battles they can't win. They've never fought anyone who grew up on a world that spent millions of years trying to kill them." As the human ships converged on the Zephyrian system, word of their mission spread throughout the galaxy. Some species watched with interest, wondering if the newcomers from the death world called Earth could really challenge the might of the Vactar Empire. Others prepared for what they expected would be a quick and brutal example of what happened to those who opposed Vactar rule. But Captain Mitchell, studying the tactical reports in his ready room, felt something he hadn't expected. Confidence. The humans were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the Vaktar didn't understand. They had evolved on a planet where only the smartest, toughest, and most adaptable survived, and now they were bringing those skills to the stars. The rescue fleet was small, but it carried with it the hopes of an entire species and the desperate fury of a world that had learned to fight for survival against impossible odds. The Zephyrian system looked like a graveyard when the human fleet arrived. Dead ships floated in space like broken toys, their crystal hulls shattered and dark. The beautiful planet that had once been home to billions of singing beings now showed ugly scars across its surface where the Vaktar had bombed the cities. Captain Danny Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the destruction through the main viewing screen. His jaw was tight with anger as he counted the enemy ships. 42 Vaktar vessels moved in formation around the planet, some still firing at targets on the surface. Others hung in orbit like vultures, waiting to collect whatever survivors they could find for their slave markets. "Sir, we're picking up faint signals from the planet," reported his communications officer. "Some Zephyrians are still alive down there, but not many." Rodriguez nodded grimly. The human fleet had made good time, but they were still too late to save most of the crystal people. Now their job was to save whoever was left and make the Vaktar pay for what they had done. The human force was small compared to the enemy fleet. The Vengeance was their only real warship. Captain Pete Williams had brought his cargo hauler New Boston, loaded with supplies and armed volunteers. Captain Mary Foster's mining ship Iron Will bristled with industrial equipment that could be used as weapons. Captain Ryan Mitchell's research station Kepler completed their tiny fleet. "All ships, this is Rodriguez," the captain said into his communicator. "Remember the plan. We only get one chance at this, so we need to make it count." The plan they had developed was crazy by normal military standards. No sane commander would attempt what they were about to do. But as Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes had pointed out during their planning session, sanity was a luxury they couldn't afford. The attack began with the New Boston broadcasting a surrender signal as it approached the largest Vaktar ship. "Captain." Williams sat in his pilot's chair, trying to look defeated and helpless as his ship drifted toward the enemy dreadnought. The Vaktar commander, Admiral Thekvar, watched the approaching human vessel with satisfaction. He had heard rumors about these newcomers from the death world called Earth, but they seemed as weak as all the other species he had conquered. Surrendering without even firing a shot proved how cowardly they really were. "Allow the human ship to dock," Thekvar ordered. "We will add these Deathworlders to our slave collection. The markets will pay well for specimens from such a dangerous planet." The New Boston docked with the Vaktar flagship, and boarding ramps extended between the ships. Vaktar soldiers moved to secure the prisoners, expecting to find a cargo hold full of frightened humans ready to beg for their lives. Instead, they found Sergeant Tim Clark and 30 of the toughest men and women the human fleet could provide. These weren't regular soldiers. They were miners, engineers, security guards, and researchers who had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. They carried weapons designed for Earth's most dangerous predators and had grown up on a world that tried to kill them every day. The Vaktar soldiers had never seen anything like it. Humans moved through their ship like a force of nature, fast and deadly, and completely without fear. Sergeant Clark led his team through corridors that echoed with alien screams, their weapons cutting through Vaktar armor like it was made of paper. "This is for the singers," Clark growled as he and his team fought their way toward the enemy ship's bridge. While the boarding action created chaos aboard the Vaktar flagship, the rest of the human fleet struck from multiple directions. Captain Foster's mining ship Iron Will used its industrial plasma cutters to slice through enemy vessels, the powerful tools cutting neat holes in Vaktar hull armor. What had been designed to cut through asteroids worked even better on warships. The Vengeance deployed its full arsenal of missiles and energy weapons, but Rodriguez had saved his best surprise for last. Dr. Amanda Brooks had spent the journey to the Zephyrian system working with the ship's engineers to modify human weapons based on her research into Zephyrian communication frequencies. The modified weapons fired sound waves along with their regular ammunition frequencies that Dr. Brooks had calculated would disrupt Vaktar neural implants. The result was devastating. Enemy ships found their crews collapsing as their cybernetic enhancements overloaded and shut down. But the humans weren't the only ones fighting. As the battle raged in space, something miraculous happened on the planet's surface. The surviving Zephyrians, who had been hiding in underground caves and broken buildings, heard the sound of human weapons and realized that help had finally arrived. Dr. Brooks had transmitted her frequency research to the planet before the battle began. Now, the crystal beings understood how to turn their songs into weapons. All across the devastated world, Zephyrians began to sing in harmony, their voices combining to create sound waves that reached into space and interfered with Vaktar ship systems. The enemy fleet, which had seemed invincible just hours before, began to fall apart. Ships collided with each other as their navigation systems failed. Weapons fired randomly as targeting computers crashed. The Vaktar had built their empire on technology and overwhelming force, but they had never faced an enemy that could turn their own systems against them. Admiral Thekvar watched his fleet crumble from the bridge of his flagship. Half his ships were already destroyed or disabled. The humans had somehow boarded his command vessel and were fighting their way through his ship room by room. And from the planet below, those cursed crystal singers were making his remaining ship's computers go insane with their horrible music. "Retreat," he ordered his surviving captains. "All ships withdraw from the system immediately." But the humans weren't finished. As the Vaktar ships tried to escape, Captain Rodriguez gave the order his crew had been waiting for. "All ships pursue and destroy. Don't let a single one of them get away to report what happened here." The battle became a rout. Human ships, small and fast and deadly, chased the fleeing Vaktar vessels through the outer system. The mining ship Iron Will used its cutting tools to disable enemy engines. The New Boston, its cargo holds now empty of boarding troops, rammed smaller Vaktar ships and sent them spinning into asteroids. Captain Mitchell's research station Kepler, armed with nothing but scientific equipment, somehow managed to capture 3 enemy vessels by using their sensor arrays to jam Vaktar communications and navigation systems. When the fighting finally ended, 38 Vaktar ships had been destroyed or captured. Only 4 had escaped to carry word of their defeat back to the Empire. The Zephyrian system was free, and the survivors on the planet below were singing songs of joy and gratitude that echoed through space. Sergeant Clark and his boarding team had succeeded in their impossible mission, capturing the enemy flagship and taking Admiral Thekvar prisoner. As they secured the Vaktar command ship, Clark looked around at his exhausted but victorious team. "Not bad for a bunch of research scientists and cargo haulers," he said with a tired grin. The Battle of Zephyria Prime was over, but its effects would be felt across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, someone had stood up to the Vaktar Empire and won. The Deathworlders from Earth had kept their promise to answer the call for help, and they had done it with the kind of ruthless efficiency that only a species forged in violence could achieve. 3 weeks after the battle, Captain Ryan Mitchell stood in what had once been the Grand Crystal Hall of Zephyr Prime's capital city. The beautiful spires were broken and scarred, but the Zephyrians were already beginning to rebuild. Their songs filled the air as they worked, harmonies that seemed to make the crystal walls grow and heal themselves. Mitchell watched Dr. Amanda Brooks working with a group of young Zephyrians, teaching them how to use their voices as tools for construction, rather than weapons. The crystal beings had been amazed to learn that their songs could be more than just communication. Under Amanda's guidance, they were discovering abilities they never knew they possessed. "Captain Mitchell," called a melodic voice behind him. Mitchell turned to see Resonance of Joy and Morning Light, one of the Zephyrian council members who had survived the attack. The alien's crystal body sparkled with colors that showed gratitude and friendship. "Please, just call me Ryan," Mitchell replied. He had gotten used to the Zephyrians' musical names, though they were difficult for human tongues to pronounce correctly. "Ryan," the Zephyrian sang, "we have received word from many worlds. The news of what your people did here is spreading throughout the galaxy. Species that have lived in fear of the Vaktar for generations are beginning to hope again." Mitchell nodded. The political effects of their victory had been swift and dramatic. Within days of the battle, the Altarian Trade Federation had sent representatives to negotiate defense contracts with humanity. The Centauri hegemony, which had warned against interfering with the Vaktar, now requested meetings to discuss mutual protection agreements. But the most important changes were happening among the species that had been terrorized by the Vaktar Empire for so long. The Andromedan Council, a group of peaceful traders, had sent messages of support and offers of economic cooperation. The Tau Ceti colonies, which had been paying tribute to the Vaktar for 50 years, declared their independence and asked for human protection. Captain Danny Rodriguez walked up to join the conversation. The commander of the UES Vengeance had been busy establishing a permanent human presence in the Zephyrian system. Earth had responded to their victory by sending a full battle group to protect the Crystal people and serve as a base for future operations. "Ryan, I just got word from Admiral Morrison," Rodriguez said. "The Senate has approved funding for 12 new ships to be stationed out here. They're calling it the Outer Rim Defense Fleet." Mitchell smiled. Politicians who had questioned the wisdom of helping the Zephyrians were now competing to show their support for the mission. The rescue had become a symbol of human courage and determination, and no politician wanted to be seen as opposing it. "Any word on the Vaktar response?" Mitchell asked. Rodriguez's expression grew serious. 4 of their fleets have pulled back from contested systems. Our intelligence sources say the Empire is in chaos. Some of their subject species are starting to rebel, and the Vaktar military is having trouble controlling their own territory. This was exactly what the humans had hoped for. Admiral Thekvar, now a prisoner aboard the Vengeance, had revealed during questioning that the Vaktar Empire was not as strong as it appeared. Like many bullies, they depended on fear and the appearance of invincibility. Once that image was broken, their control began to crumble. Dr. Brooks approached the group, her face excited. "Ryan, you need to see this. The Zephyrians have been working on something incredible." She led them to a large chamber where dozens of Zephyrians stood in formation. As Mitchell watched, they began to sing together, their voices creating complex harmonies that seemed to make the very air shimmer. Suddenly, a holographic image appeared in the center of the room, showing star charts and tactical information. "They're using their songs to create 3-dimensional displays," Brooks explained. "It's a form of technology we never imagined. They can share information instantly across vast distances using harmonic frequencies." Resonance of Joy in Morning Light sang a few notes, and the display changed to show the current positions of human and Zephyrian ships throughout the system. "We wish to share this gift with our human friends," the crystal being explained. "Your people saved us. Now we can help you protect others." This partnership between human tactical thinking and Zephyrian harmonic technology was already changing the balance of power in the galaxy. Combined human Zephyrian patrol ships could communicate instantly across light years, coordinate attacks with perfect timing, and share information in ways that no other species could match. Meanwhile, Captain Pete Williams was overseeing the construction of a new space station in orbit around Zephyra Prime. The old cargo hauler captain had volunteered to stay and help establish a permanent human presence in the system. His ship, the New Boston, was being converted into a mobile command center that could respond quickly to distress calls from other threatened species. "You know, Ryan," Williams said as they watched construction crews working on the station, "I've been hauling cargo for 20 years, and I never thought I'd be part of something like this, building something that really matters." Captain Mary Foster had taken her mining ship Iron Will and a crew of volunteers to help rebuild the Zephyrian cities. Her industrial equipment was perfect for the large-scale construction work needed to repair the damage from the Vaktar attack. More importantly, she was training Zephyrian engineers in human construction techniques, creating a fusion of crystal growing and metalworking technologies. The changes weren't limited to the Zephyrian system. Back on Earth, the victory had transformed humanity's reputation throughout the galaxy. Species that had barely acknowledged human existence now sent ambassadors to establish formal relations. Trade agreements were signed with dozens of worlds. Most importantly, a steady stream of distress calls began reaching human space from species facing threats they couldn't handle alone. Admiral Kate Morrison had established the Emergency Response Protocol, a system for quickly deploying human forces to help threatened civilizations. The protocol was based on the lessons learned during the Zephyrian rescue, emphasizing speed, flexibility, and the use of unconventional tactics. Mitchell received a message from Earth informing him that he had been promoted to Commodore and given command of the new Outer Rim Defense Fleet. The promotion came with a simple mission: protect the innocent and ensure that no peaceful species would face extinction alone. As Mitchell stood in the Crystal Hall, listening to the Zephyrians sing their songs of rebuilding and hope, he thought about how much had changed since that first distress call reached the Kepler research station. Humanity had found its purpose among the stars, not as conquerors but as protectors. The galaxy was learning that the Deathworlders from Earth were not the savage monsters some had feared. They were something far more dangerous to tyrants and oppressors. They were the species that answered when the innocent called for help, and they brought with them all the tactical cunning and relentless determination that had made them the dominant life form on the most dangerous planet in known space. In the weeks that followed, more distress calls came. The Kepler research station, now designated as a rapid response vessel, continued to patrol the Outer Rim. Each time they received a call for help, Mitchell and his crew remembered the songs of the Zephyrians and the promise they had made to ensure that no peaceful species would face destruction alone. The age of human expansion had begun, built not on conquest but on protection, not on fear but on hope. And throughout the galaxy, species that had lived in terror of the strong preying on the weak began to sing songs of their own, songs of gratitude for the Deathworlders who had shown them that even the mightiest empires could fall when good people decided to fight back.